to episode 34 of season 5 of Whole Lot of Wolves. I'm Joshua Buckley with co-host Paul LePage.
Hello.
In New York City, our producer Alex Patakis.
Hey.
On the socials, he's in Baltimore, Mr. Danny Paletti.
Good evening.
And making his debut, Mr. Greg Ellis from Denver, Colorado, by way of England. Is that correct?
I am originally from Wolverhampton, yeah, but now here in the Mile High City. Thanks for having me on, everyone.
So we're this is a pretty cool one. I know we have some unique guests, but Greg is a musical stand-up comedian, the presenter for the 18.com soccer channel.
Yeah,
that's an interesting combo there, Greg.
Yeah, musical stand-up. It's not as bad as it sounds, honestly. It's fine. But yeah, I've been over here in the US now like about 13, 14 years, and I got into improv when I moved here, and then got into stand-up after that. So yeah, it's been part of what's made me whilst being here in the US. And yeah, I do some soccer presenting as well for the 18.com, which is a soccer channel based up here in Colorado, in Boulder. So I've got a few links to that on my socials as well.
So you're from England. I'm going to guess you're from Wolverhampton?
Yeah, I grew up there, and then went to college outside of there in the East Midlands, Nuno's stomping ground, now up in Nottingham, and then back to the West Midlands, and then Sweden, and then the United States.
So you've obviously been a fan your whole life, right?
Yeah. I know. Although actually, I was thinking about this. As a kid, I didn't go to a lot of games. My dad, he frequented the ground a lot as a fan back in the 50s, back in the days of Billy Wright. He's a lot older than most dads. And then, yeah, as a kid growing up, it was always on and around me, but I didn't make it to the stadium too much. And then as I've got older, it's always sort of been in my blood. And then I've followed it more and more, ironically, the further away I've been from Wolverhampton. Yeah, no, I try and watch every game as long as there isn't a clash with the Dragonflies, which is my daughter's kindergarten team on a Saturday. That sometimes happens. But it's been great, really, particularly, well, obviously since they've been in the Premier League as well, but obviously having that coverage over here in the US via NBC Sports and then Peacock. To be able to just access all the games, because I know that's not easy in a lot of territories around the world as well. So
now, Greg, when you're at your daughter's soccer game, I know this is what I did. This is why God invented streaming video on cell phone. You get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, cheering at the wrong moment as Cunha knocks in a fourth or something.
So, what's your favorite all-time Wolves match?
I was able to think about this. If you type in like Nuno into like a GIF generator, you'll get that game where he was sent to the stands against Bristol City. I checked the date; it was December 2017, and it was when he was just losing his mind about that equaliser from that winning goal from Ryan Bennett in the final stages of the game. And I had to check the date. I thought it was like later in the season, but that was like before Christmas or around Christmas. And it meant that they went 10 points clear. And I think it just stuck in my mind and came back in the last couple of weeks, because I'm getting that same kind of feeling now with where Wolves are as a team. That kind of inflection point, given where we've been. And so, yeah, it's been that probably stands out as my most memorable game. Even though it was like, again, at Bristol City, and it was they were already ahead in the table.
Ryan Bennett is a name I have not heard in a long time.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's not like unglamorous game, but it was, I think it just, what it meant to the team at that point in time and where they'd been, they'd gone from Kenny Jackett to Nuno, and it gave them such a lead at the top of the table. And obviously they finished top that season and got promoted. And it was just, yeah, that kind of just sticks in my mind. And it is one of the things that comes up often if you type in like Nuno as a GIF to find.
So who's your favorite current Wolves player and your all-time favorite Wolves player?
All time, I mean, you got to be like Steve Ball, or going back, when I was, a kid growing up, that was all we heard about. He actually came to my high school and opened a newspaper recycling bin that they opened on one of the car parks. I remember as a kid. So that probably sticks in my mind. Actually, from the more recent players, again, thinking about this, I used to really like Romain Saiss. No particular reason. I looked his record up: 25 yellow cards, 1 red, And I think he just used to get stuck in early doors, as they say. And that was always like something I looked forward to. And I think they dipped quite a bit when they got rid of him. In terms of the current squad, I mean, he's only been there a few months, but I think Emmanuel Agbadou, I think, is one of the. I can't think of a player that's been able to come in to many clubs in the way that he has and had an impact straight away. And like he had a couple of mistakes here and there, but I think he's one of the best players at the moment for me, just in his position and the impact that he's had on the team, particularly this last sort of 8 or 9 games.
Yeah, he's incredible. Paul, I find it interesting that a lot of Brits, when you ask them their favorite player, it's always like the scrappy kind of underdog player. Then you ask all the Americans, and we're the flashy ones, like, oh, Adama, or who's scoring goals. Like, I guarantee you, most U.S. fans right now would probably say Strand Larsen. I guess.
Yeah. I mean, the phenomenon that he's had this season has really been his ability to score in the first half of the season. I mean, his record from what we were as a team. Although actually, I looked at some stats today, and I think the goal scored under Gary O'Neill was like 24, and I think the goal scored under Vitor Pereira is like 23. But we've let in half as many under Pereira, so maybe that's probably why I skewed a little bit towards Agbadou, maybe.
Well, let's talk about this match because Alex and I texted the day before because I saw Wolves were a favorite for the match, and I went, uh-oh. And Alex went, uh-oh, because you never want that to be the case. But as it turns out, Paul, they have done something now that you have never seen in your life as a Wolves fan. And that is Wolves winning 4 matches in the Premier League in a row. Not only is that crazy to think, but is it crazy that it's this team that happens?
It's crazy that it's this team this season and right at the actual point that we've really needed it as well. I think if you'd have asked to write a story of how someone could come in and keep the team up, it would be exactly like what's happening right now. The thing about it, as it comes to being a Wolves fan, is that this never happens. It never works out picture book. It's often the complete opposite. So you're kind of in dreamland that it's actually working and it's actually come off, and we're going to stay up. We're going to stay up really comfortably, actually, and we could still climb the table even further. And then if you wound all of that back, and you just said at the start of the season, well, would you take 15th? You'd have probably said, well, if it was a crappy season and, you know, our form was patchy, you probably would. But to turn it around from what Pereira picked up when O'Neill was fired, it's transformational. It's unbelievable, really.
It resulted in the 4-2 win over Spurs, which you could argue wasn't even that close. And Paul, it started with the lineup that came out. It's the same. Cunha on the bench. Obviously, we've talked about it. You felt like that was the correct decision.
Yeah, and I was pleased that he went with it early as well. That it was in the press conference. He was very open about it, and I think with all of this that's going on, like the sideshow of Cunha, I'm just backing the manager with it. If he thinks that he's in a position to play now, or he's an option off the bench like he was yesterday against Spurs, I'll hold my hands up. It's totally on Vitor. I'll trust whatever he does now because he knows he's in and around these players day in, day out, you know. And I think it's kind of hard to tell from the scenes and the camaraderie amongst the team, but there still seems a fantastic team spirit, even with Cunha in and around it. So I don't think it's got that much negativity to impact what's going on the pitch either. So he kind of got the best of both worlds yesterday in that he didn't have to start him. He was able to come on and make an impact. So it was really just perfect execution, I think.
Well, it started out really good for Wolves, Greg. Ryan Aitnery scores 2 minutes in. It was Wolves' fastest goal in the Premier League. Did you kind of get a feeling then, like, we have a chance to really boat race these guys?
Yeah, and I think that you know, it was Bellegarde that took the free kick, whipped in, wasn't it? And I think he's again another one of these players that's transformed under the new manager. And I think that I was worried that they scored a bit early. I hate that cliche, it's too soon, but I can't think of many games where Wolves have like gone ahead that early and then carried on moving forward on the front foot. And I think that again is symptomatic of where we are at the moment versus a few months ago. But yeah, it was really impressive to see Ryan Aitnery as well during that game. I think he was candidate for man of the match. We can talk about that later in terms of what happened with some of the other guys. But yeah, I think his contribution and get just the momentum swinging that early in the game played into Wolves' hands obviously very well for the rest of the game. And they did well actually to continue on that front foot and not just sit back and get a bit complacent as they may have done in previous months.
Yeah, Danny Aitnery contributed an assist later in the match. So he is the first Wolves defender to provide 10 Premier League assists for Wolves, and no defender in the Premier League has been more involved. He has 4 goals and 6 assists. Aitnery. A little surprising to hear those numbers.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think that, I mean, I guess unsurprising in a team that has struggled for most of the season. But, I think a lot of people felt that he was having not his best season, that they look back on last season. He was much more, adventurous. He'd pop up in forward areas. But I think that even in the darker days of this season, you could see him putting together a really good record even then. Because, I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe I'm now in the mood to like look with skepticism at Gary O'Neill's time, but like everybody's always so excited to see him popping up, in the final third. He's so skillful on the ball. It's really fun. I mean, it's kind of like the Adama factor, where it's just like when he has the ball, you want to see what he's going to do with it. But to that point, last season, we really didn't see him do that much with it. It was really only when we started to have a complete crisis in terms of the forwards that he could pop up with a goal here and there. Whereas now, I think he's playing a bit more reserved based on, what he's being told to do. But he's also being more effective. So he's not quite as like dynamic and exciting as he was to watch last year. But the numbers speak for themselves. He's being way more effective. He's scoring goals. He's providing assists, really good assists. And then every so often he turns up to mark Mo Salah out of a game.
I'm just hearing the price tag keep bringing up.
You and Jeff Shee both.
Yeah, it is. Well, then Wolves got a second one on an absolutely dreadful Alex. I felt like the only thing missing was the Benny Hill music there. Just, I mean, even a Gary O'Neill Wolves defense would be like, really? We gave that up?
Well, yeah, I think I thought you were going to say the only thing missing was like a immediate cut to Gary O'Neill studying on the iPad after the goal, because we're used to some calamitous defending leading to goals like that, and then seeing that image right away. I felt a little bad for Jed Spence. Like, what are you really supposed to do in that instance? Like, you get the ball smashed into you. There's nothing he can do. He did actually save a goal later on in the match, so I guess he redeemed himself. But yeah, their defending was really bad. I mean, like I just think about Ange and how many people are waiting for him to get fired. Which, if they lose, this week on the road at Frankfurt in the Europa League, maybe you could pull the plug then. But you probably don't want to do that now with the Europa League being your last chance of really securing anything for next season. But I just kept like feeling really sad for him. He was just completely stoic on the sidelines with no answers whatsoever. And it's really nuts that a club of that size would tolerate this for this long, because it's Wolves took action, yes, and I understand that we were in a much worse position than Spurs are now, but Spurs' alternatives are also much greater, right? Like they should theoretically be able to make some type of move. So this one's on him. It's on all of them. Yeah, he's a dead man walking, and I think the way that they're defending and the lack of heart shown from them is probably a good indication of that. But it was pretty hilarious. It's nice to be on the other end of those, you know.
Yeah. Gary O'Neill for Spurs manager. That's what I'm hearing.
Oh God, good luck. I hope.
Paul Bellegarde had that great free kick early on. He's really been good under Vitor Pereira. Got hurt, came out. Pereira said, small knock, nothing to really worry about. Sarabia ended up replacing him there. Were you a little surprised that Sarabia was the choice and not Cunha?
I wasn't at the time. I think if it was later on in the game into the second half, you might have seen a light for light for Cunha. But I think the Sarabia sub allowed a little more attacking the tent, but a little more solidity at the same time, whereas Cunha's certainly more offensive. And it's a funny thing about Sarabia. There's maybe it was something to do with him last year, but there do seem to be a feeling for me anyway that he plays better against a certain set of teams, and whether it's just that Tottenham is shit, that he actually looked pretty good. Maybe it was simply down to that, but I just thought it was a game that would have suited him and ultimately did, and he had a pretty good showing.
Well, in the second half, Spurs pulled within 2-1. Danny, were you concerned at all at that point when you knocked that through?
I mean, it was a little disappointing. It was, even though I think, any team that's down 2-0 is going to come out from halftime with a renewed sense of purpose and a bit more energy. But even so, I thought we were weathering it really well. And I really felt like that goal was kind of out of nothing. A little disappointing. And I'm sure that Semedo would feel that way, that, it's just like it's not really to his level. The way that, especially this season, I think, he's only gotten better since he's arrived here. And for him, better usually means more and more consistent. I think he's been so consistent this season, obviously, especially under Vitor Pereira. And that's just so obviously just kind of a blip. His body shape's kind of wrong, and he just doesn't deal with it the way that you'd expect him to. So it was really disappointing to have them pull within one, even though in a weird way, I mean, maybe I was just riding on the high of just not feeling worried about a result anymore, because I feel like survival is pretty much, that's a dead question at this point. But even when they pulled one back, and even when they pulled the other one back, I just never particularly felt like we were going to lose that game, which is a very alien feeling for this season. But yeah, I mean, we were just controlling the game throughout. And so, like I said, disappointing to concede one that was fairly avoidable.
Yeah, Greg, it seems like this team really showed its mentality, because not only did they respond to that goal, but they did it rather quickly to retake that 2-goal advantage. Nice open play by Aitnery, tap in for Strand Larsen. Really just great play by both of them. But at the mentality of the squad now, I mean, it seems like a Nuno type squad where they're not going to get beat down by one goal.
Yeah, no, I think I had the same feeling as Danny. It feels, seeing the mistakes that Tottenham are making at the back, I think all 4 goals could have been avoided. And that felt very reminiscent of early this season. And obviously it was Romero that made the mistake. And Ryan Aitnori was able again to cross that ball into Strand Larsen. And yeah, you were right, 4 minutes, I think. How deflating that must be when you get, and we've been there earlier in the season.
Yeah, we've been there.
Game. You go a goal or you equalize, we're still going to lose this. They're going to score, or something's going to happen. You've got those negative thoughts. You kind of neuro-linguistic program them into action. And then all of a sudden it becomes reality. But yeah, the mentality of the squad, and we saw it again. We'll talk about this in a bit, but we saw this again at the end as well. They drew another one back, and even then I didn't have that kind of doom and gloom feeling that I've had. And I think that's just symptomatic of, we will make mistakes. There will be openings. These teams have talented players that can make goals out of nothing. But if you've got that confidence and you're on the front foot, and the momentum is still there, a team like Wolves that seem to be now pulling them out of the bag, and I bet it's a lot nicer around Molineux when those kind of opposition goals go in, and you feel like you're still in the game, even if you're in the lead at that point still.
And Alex, glad to see it with Strand Larsen again coming through with the goal. He's just been a different player over the last 5 games.
Yeah, he has. It's been really nice to see, especially since he, dealt with an injury a little bit earlier this season, which is crazy that his goal output is what it is, considering he missed a little bit of time. Wouldn't have seen that coming. So I was happy to see it. I strangely, selfishly, maybe it's not strange anymore after everything that's happened with Cunha this year, really want him to finish the year as the leading scorer.
How much money do you have on it?
Enough. Enough, let's say, to want it fairly significantly. But also I think that would be like the only preseason prediction I might get right, because I think I said that Strand Larsen would be the leading scorer, and then I thought there was absolutely no way based off of the way that Cunha started. I still think it's a conversation though, because I agree with I think what Paul said earlier in that, well, if Bellegarde is healthy, like Cunha can just be a bench player. Like he can come in and just be the closer, and it could be a little bit of a statement from Vitor, and it could just be a way to, have a nice bench option as well for the remaining games that he's got left in a Wolves uniform. So, but Larsen's been great. All season long, we're like, he's getting criticized, and then we're like, well, we don't talk about it enough. Look at his output. No one's done this since Raul. He's still a young player. It's his first season, and I know he was in La Liga the year before this, but it's not like he was like a staple in La Liga for a very long time. I believe he was only at Celta for 1 season, 2 seasons maybe, prior to this. So I still think there's a lot of room for growth there for him. I'm more just thinking about, riding this high into the summer and then wondering what the attacking unit around him is going to look like. Like if Strand Larsen has 15, 16 goals, you go into next season thinking, okay, we got a 9. We've made his loan permanent. He's in his mid-20s. He's kind of prime age. Like, do we form our offensive, philosophy around him? And I just, then I go down this kind of negative path where I'm like, I don't trust this team to do that at all. But that being said, I digress. I am very excited to see what can happen next season, because if he's doing it with Manetzi and Bellegarde, and they get 60 million or whatever from the release clause for Cunha, like you have to stumble into a halfway decent player, even if you like reinvest half of that, right? So
the Dom was available for real cheap, right?
Yeah. See, I don't know. I think I'm over that. Like, I think even Larsen can't get on the end of Adama's crosses. No one really could. So, yeah.
So Paul, after that goal, Cunha made his appearance. Now, on the broadcast, we could hear it very clearly. They were singing "Do What Diddy." Well, in the South Bank on Twitter were saying they didn't hear that at all, which I thought was interesting. So overall, what did you think of the reception he got when he came onto the?
Yeah, purely based off the broadcast, it seemed like a positive one. Now, whether that was influenced some part in that it was a double substitution, it was a stage of the game of relative comfort and to celebrate the players coming off as well at the same time. Maybe that factored into it as well. But yeah, my basic view of it from watching on TV was that it was relatively supportive for him.
Well, and we didn't know exactly what he'd be doing, but turned out to be pretty big in the end, Danny, especially after Richarlison knocked in a header, was back to a 1-goal advantage, and then Cunha had a little magic, stole the ball, put it away, followed by a very interesting celebration, which I don't think I've ever seen, where he ran over to the fans and was almost begging forgiveness. Think about that.
It was so strange. Well, first of all, the goal with a little bit of help from Tottenham's shit defense. I've seen some people say it, but it bears repeating that if anything, I think we should be disappointed to have only scored 4 with the way that they were defending. I think, like Greg said, it was some defending that we're very familiar with, where there are just gaps everywhere, and also anything that can go wrong will go wrong. But that being said, I don't know what Bergvall is doing there, but Cunha does exactly what Cunha does. If you give him even the slightest amount of space to steal the ball away and to dribble into the box, that's exactly what he's going to do 99 times out of 100. But the celebration was, I guess, maybe I expected something on that level because of all the nonsense over the weekend with the Instagram post that was taken down and blah, 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 all the extra stuff that's been going on. But yeah, very odd. So little, praying hands emoji, seeming of, forgiveness asking, and then drawing a heart with your fingers, and then tapping the badge, and then a little mini finger circling in the air celebration like at the Hawthorns, and then tapping the badge again. There were a lot of things going on in that celebration. And I think all the things that I've said in the past about him stand uncontradicted, in the sense that I think he, at the very least in person, is very good at managing his image. And so, I'm not that surprised that he got at least some decent reception on when he came on, because I think that the Instagram thing was silly and was a bit of a tempest in a teapot, as they say. But we have to remember that most people don't live their lives completely online and, paying attention to every little thing that gets posted. It was a big deal on Twitter, but, I dare say that 80% or more of the people at Molineux that evening probably didn't know that it had even happened. So, very, very strange celebration, but an extremely typical Cunha goal.
I think Cunha's agent probably had to call Rachel Zegler's agent to figure out how to do damage control, because that's what it felt like. Greg, do you feel like it was a genuine celebration?
Yeah, I mean, we live in this world where you have to keep throwing stuff out to social media. I was working with a career coach, and she said, you got to post on LinkedIn every day. And it's like, I don't have enough stuff to post on LinkedIn like once every 6 months. You know what I mean? And I think that the thing he put out, and then he retracted it. And the second one, which was so happy to be back tomorrow, which was the second tweet that I think he put out with the Instagram post. That's the kind of thing he should have led with. And I think it was, like you said, Danny, a tempest in a teacup. And then the celebration, I think it is genuine. He is happy to be there. We'll miss him when he's gone. He's a great player. If we fritter that money away that we do get for him on bang average also rans, then we'll definitely miss him even more, because we'll be in a similar situation to potentially where we were this season. And I think that's what it comes down to. Just he is impactful. He is important. He'll continue to be important through to the end of the season. That's the kind of player he is. That's the kind of, he has that in him. That's why he's had a couple of suspensions, and that's just where he is. But I think that being there at the game, that 3-2, that Richarlison goal, again, you could 6 months ago, 5 months ago, be worried about where that game's going. I think that the fact that he knocked that in within 3 or 4 minutes of Richarlison's goal just put a lid on it, and then we saw the last 10 minutes of the game out. Really, is what we should be looking for from a player like that coming off the bench at that point in the game.
And boy, Alex, there were good vibes again. New chants in the stadium about first the points, then the pints. Like, he even got the journalist saying it, which I thought was very Ted Lasso-y. I mean, Vitor's really just changed the whole vibe right now.
Yeah, I mean, winning fixes everything. It is funny, though, that this guy who, like, when, we heard that he was going to become the next Wolves manager, that we all then go and, like, research, and, like, the first, like, 3 or 4 YouTube videos of him are him, like, either getting really angry and saying things that you couldn't really imagine any other manager saying about the quality of the league that he's currently managing in, or just how, like, ornery he is, or people comparing him to Jose Mourinho. But, all of that being said, the one thing he's consistently said is that it's like his absolute dream to manage in the Premier League. And he's certainly acting like it, he's seizing this opportunity. So I'm super thankful for that. The vibes I feel like couldn't be higher, even in the, some of the content you get from the Wolves social media team afterwards. Them dancing to the the house music or whatever in the dressing room after. I mean, it seems like a genuinely fun place to be, which I don't know. We've seen this before. We've seen like very like small like micro seasons within a season that are really, really good. We've also seen them be like at an all-time low. I just really hope that this can be something we can build on, continuing to go in that direction. And I think if Vitor keeps playing to the crowd the way he does, meeting them out for pints in the pub after matches, handling the media extremely well, which I can't imagine is that easy to do in anybody's second language, but especially with all the attention that you get in the EPL and the media in that regard, especially in a relegation battle. Like, I've been really, really impressed with who he is, like the quality of the person that he is. So maybe he can be the face of Wolves for a while, and maybe we can kind of like rekindle some of that Nuno magic, where it didn't always feel like it was so much about, like, we had good players and Wolves have good players now, but it never really felt like it was all about like a guy or two. It was really about the collective, and Nuno was the face of it. And I'm getting that vibe again. So
it's definitely. We talked about this last week. It feels like this has been 4 seasons in one, Paul. It seems like the longest year, and we could go back and listen 2 months ago, and it's a completely different tone now.
We've had like just a boatload of talking points that, like, bad start, firing the coach, like renegade Maverick player, bad FA Cup exit on penalties, like you name it. This season has like touched upon everything, and then even in a positive way, you got Strand Larsen and Cunha vying for top goal scorer, like in double digits. We've not been close to double digit strikers for so many years. Even that feels strange. So there's one part of me that is kind of looking forward for the season to end, just because it has been that felt like a prolonged roller coaster. But then there's this other part of me that's just, can we be that informed team for the rest of the season, like Crystal Palace were last year, really close it out strong, and then hopefully go into the summer with a little bit of positivity. But then even then you've got that, I don't know, that unerring feeling of how Fosun are potentially going to fuck it up as well. So we don't know. We don't know if any of that drama's over until we get season ticket prices. If there's a freeze, if Cunha goes, if there's money to spend, how will it be spent, and all of that. So I think we can have a few ups and downs with this roller coaster well into pre-season for next season.
Yeah,
well, here's the. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, because I went to that place before too, that Paul was alluding to, of like kind of starting to think negatively about how Fosun and could mess this up over the summer. I think that I will feel good regardless of what happens. Go the rest of the season. Let's say we win a few more games. It's going to be great. Cunha will go. Maybe Aït-Nouri goes. If everything that happens that was in the John Percy piece from the Telegraph that we all kind of have been talking about happening for a while, like getting Sarabia off the books, Gonçalo Guedes gone, as long as the spine of the team of Agbadou, the 2 Brazilian midfielders, and Strand Larsen are there, and probably Totti, like, I think I'll be pretty optimistic going into the season, unless there was some other ridiculous happening that happened over the summer, like a sale. I can't even think of another sale, honestly, because the people like shining right now, I think, is Andre and João in the engine room, the stability of the back line, which I think is helped dramatically by everything Greg said about Agbadou before, and Strand Larsen being a reliable goal scorer, one of the most efficient goal scorers in the country this season. And all of those pieces around would be nice to have, like, but they're all superfluous to what's actually making Wolves successful right now. So maybe I'm more positive than I think now that I kind of talked this out. But don't touch Zhao or Andre, because that I think would be the only thing that would break my spirit this summer. Please.
I think for me, if they end up going early and getting that player that looks to be a natural partner for Strand Larsen, either as one of those 10s that they've mentioned, that Percy mentioned, that they might be looking at for the number 2, or just that type of player that could be the Diogo Jota to the Raul Jimenez. If they went for that, if they got that type of player in early in the close season, I think my excitement would ramp up tenfold as well.
You guys are funny. When have they ever done anything?
And for God's sakes, don't change our shape. Okay.
Oh, it's coming. The 3-6-1 isn't coming, baby.
Just no back 4 experiment over the summer.
Oh, I think that's done.
Yeah, I think
So here are the official stats through 16 games, by the way. O'Neal had 2 wins, 3 draws, 11 losses, 24 goals, 440 against. Pereira, 8 wins, draws, 6 losses, 23 goals. Like Greg said, 1 less than O'Neal. 21 goals against, so 19 less goals. So you look at what the turnaround was, it's pretty obvious there. Well, we've got another interesting match, which I'm sure Danny will have some good catchability rankings with this one. But Wolves versus Manchester United, Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central. Manchester United's a dumpster fire. Wolves are, you could say, as hot as they've ever been. 4 wins in a row. Greg, what's your initial feeling here?
Oh, well, it doesn't clash with the Dragonflies kindergarten game on Saturday, so that's good. So I'll be there watching this one. I don't know. They've got that second leg against Lyon, haven't they, on Thursday? United. It is a bit of a dumpster fire. I mean, we saw both teams cycled some players out for this last game. They both let 4 goals in. Tottenham and Manchester United. This is the other side of that European fixture. Will there be heavy legs from the extra game? I'm not sure. Will Onana make his way back in? I could see it going any way. Wolves. We've just talked. This is the first time they've scored. They've won 4 in a row in the top flight since 1972. To push that to 5th in a row is quite an ask. Just because that it doesn't happen 4 times for so many years. So. I don't know. I think they'll go there with the same confidence. They might not go there with the same starting 11. I don't know whether some of the injuries and knocks that they took in this last game might impact that. I could definitely see Wolves going there and taking the game to them early, though, and just trying to capitalize on the fact that they've had that extra fatigue in their legs, and obviously Wolves are just riding high, and just see where that leads them.
Paul, I think what's going to be interesting now is Bellegarde did leave the contest early with a knock. Does this kind of make room for Cunha to slide back into the starting 11? Or Bellegarde can't go, is it going to be Sarabia instead?
Personally, I think it'll be Sarabia. Again, more away from home, slightly more solid set up that way. But still with some attacking impetus and creativity that hopefully he can offer. I know, again, a team that you could think Sarabia will do pretty well against. So I don't think the clamour will be there to start Cunha after Sunday, not needing him initially, but when he came on, obviously he made a really good impact. So I could think Vitor's looking towards that similar setup again. And I think just from what we've seen up to this point, he shows like a tremendous loyalty to his players and those that put in those performances to warrant keeping the shirt. So I think anyone else who you might look at thinking, well, his place could be in jeopardy, like Manetzi, I don't see that whatsoever. I think he's got that starting jersey based off of his performances. So I think it'll be Sarabia.
I will say, Danny, that Cunha would be quite motivated to do well against Manchester United now.
Yeah, I think he could be. I've said in the past, I don't have a read on whether his ego will support him going to a Manchester United that maybe doesn't have European competition and might finish around 14th or so. But the paycheck that comes with it might be enough to sway his mind, as it has for many other players. It should be said. So yeah, hopefully he sees as a bit of an audition, and whatever minutes he gets, he uses wisely in that time. Yeah, a weird little side note to this is that I hadn't really thought of it, but the race between Spurs and Man United is going to be one of the more interesting stories in a season where, of course, the title is already pretty much decided. The relegation 3 are pretty much decided as well. But you have these two teams that, at least until recently were, juggernauts of English football. And both of them can now not finish within the European places realistically, or maybe at all. And so are throwing a lot of eggs into the Europa League basket. And it's kind of an open secret that, if Ange doesn't win the Europa League, then he's going to get fired. And even if he does, I think it might be an open question. I think Amorim's probably there to stay, but they're both in the Europa League. They both can't win it. So even if they both make it to the final, I don't think that's good enough for Ange. And it's just such a weird position to be in with these two teams. And of course, we play them back to back. And all I'll say about that is that, we had our pretty much the perfect training match for playing against Man United by playing against Tottenham just now, because there are going to be some more very calamitous defending situations or goalkeeper situations. And I'm sure that the tactics will be slightly different, but the idea of pressing the defenders, pressing the goalkeeper in order to force mistakes, I can promise you that'll be part of it as well.
You know what it reminds me of, Danny? You know the Anakin Skywalker and Padme meme where they're chilling out resting, and Anakin's like, he would be like, we're finishing above Manchester United and this year. And Padme's like, whoa, so European football is going to be awesome. And right? Who would have thought, Alex, that we could finish above both of them and not even be close to a Europe spot? That's insane to think about.
I don't think I would have thought about that, but this is one of those situations like what Danny was saying about both of them being so desperate to win the Europa League, where teams like Wolves are really benefiting from it. And there's a very realistic scenario where we could be ahead of both of them in the next couple of weeks, I think. Obviously, we would have to beat Manchester United, but the situation is what it is. We talked about them going away to Frankfurt. I think Wolves probably have enough to beat them anyway. Spurs have to then host Forest, who I know have not been in the best form, but they have to host them coming off of. They have to host them coming off the game against Frankfurt. Man United, we get to play coming off of a game they have to win against Lyon. And then Spurs go to Liverpool on what is very likely going to be the day that Liverpool will secure the Premier League title at home. They'll probably score like 6 or 7 goals on them or something like that, because the only way that Liverpool wouldn't clinch the league then is if they clinch it this weekend, which would require something ridiculous like Ipswich beating Arsenal or something like that, which I think is what it actually would be. So we're looking at a lot of losable games for them, games that for Wolves, for scheduling circumstances or whatever reason, or just current form, seem very, very winnable. And I think it'll be hilarious that if we were to have what is effectively just like an absolute dumpster fire of a season and finish above both of these clubs, and then like a club like United comes knocking for Cunha, and like it'll really test his mettle. I mean, like Danny said, like money talks, but like, how fun will it be to poke at a team like Man United when we get to be like, no, Cunha said he wanted to be playing for titles and playing in big competitions and for a big club. And we're sitting there with a higher finish than them.
Can you imagine we finish 15th and United finish 16th and he goes to United? Like,
I can't
just-
wait for it. I'm rooting for it.
It's gonna happen.
Seriously.
And just to add one little thing, the scenario that you're looking for this weekend, assuming that Spurs lose to Forest, which of course is very possible, as long as Wolves beat Man United by a 4-goal margin or more, then we will go above both of them.
Yeah, like that's insane. And thanks to Newcastle, because the goal difference thing with Wolves and Man United keeps going in our favor because we're not giving up shit goals like they are and like Spurs are at the moment.
I forgot to ask Greg, other than the Albion, who's the team you hate the most?
That I hate. I hate's a very strong word, isn't it?
I hate Liverpool.
You hate Liverpool. I don't know. I think I don't really hate many teams. There are those when you get the games against the teams like Burnley and they just it's 6'3" guys with $5 £5 haircuts who all look very similar. All look like a team of 11 defenders. Those kind of games. Not just Burnley, just picking them out, but when you end up like descending to that level, it's like a 0-0 or a 1-1 drab affair. Like those kind of things sort of I end up watching those games with one eye somewhere else. And it looks like Burnley might be up again next season, along with Leeds. And so it'll be interesting, like some of these promoted championship teams, if we're able to like turn it on against them or whether we regress. But yeah, I think obviously, the Baggies are the biggest local rivals. I don't even mind the Villa if I'm that honest. I just, it's because it's good for the area when teams from the area do well. It's good to see Forest doing well. I used to live in Nottingham and I got a lot of friends back there of fans. And, as we're talking now, teams go up and down. They come in and out of favour and in and out of cycles. And it will happen again to us. It happened nearly this season. It still might mathematically. So it'll be interesting to see where we all finish and how the next sort of few seasons pan out. I'm just hoping that, Wolves do their thing and then the others can look after themselves and hopefully not as well as we are.
Now there is the Wolverhampton came out and Greg when he said, well, we still could be relegated this year.
I got this.
That's the Wolverhampton.
Pessimistic realism. It's this pessimistic realism I approach the world with. Like it's that game against Ipswich, and I'm watching it going, we're gonna lose this. The one where Gary O'Neill got lost, and I'm like, it's gonna happen, and it happened, and like time and time and time again. And I won't be convinced that Wolves have stayed in the Premier League until they've kicked off the first game of next season. But and the lawyers haven't found some financial irregularity, or we haven't played a player that was like 3 passports. That's that kind of thing. I just have that kind. Something's going to happen. So until we've got, I'm watching Danny's. You're doing it in the teams above us now. I still want to make sure that we've drawn that line through Ipswich.
Well, let me reassure you. Ipswich had a 2-0 lead against Chelsea, who are absolutely terrible these days, and still blew it. So
yeah, but mathematically there is still an outside chance. I mean, they've got Arsenal coming up. I don't know when the break point will be where Ipswich and Leicester are both sort of. That's it. And they're in there with Southampton, sort of trying to figure out who to offload and who to buy from League One.
Well, I was asking about the hated teams because there's going to be a lot of people rooting for Wolves this weekend because people hate Manchester United. So let's look at the standings here. Danny, catch Billy rankings. It's just a formality for you this year. 32 points. Alex with 24, but Alex. Objects in mirror are closer than they appear. I've got 20 points. And Paul's got 17. Paul was the only one that didn't get points this week. He predicted a draw. Sorry. So, Greg, what do you got for your prediction this week?
I think Wolves will win 2-1. I think they could go behind. I don't know why. I don't know whether... Again, they've got that midweek game, Manchester United. But yeah, that's my prediction. I think that they could find themselves behind for whatever reason, maybe a calamitous on Wolvesy, more Manchester United and Spursy kind of goal, and then they sort of come good. And the narrative's there for Cunha to come off the bench again and redeem the day. So we'll see. But that's my prediction.
Okay, Champ, who you got?
In my heart of hearts, I believe that they can win, and everything I've seen from Manchester United this season fills me with hope. But I also think that every streak, has its ending, and I think this one feels like a draw to me. So I'm going to say a 2-2 draw.
Alex?
Well, at least the unbeaten streak would still continue, which would be nice. I am a little scared of the fact that we have won 4 in a row, and thinking like Danny, it just can't continue, can it? But then it's like, well, we also might be facing a midfield with Casemiro or Christian Eriksen, and a very beatable lineup on paper. I think we're going to see something really similar to what we saw against Spurs, and I'll say it's a 3-1 fairly comfortable win. We do the double over them, and we get to enjoy being the leading story on a lot of podcasts. Of course, they'll be talking about it only in the context of Man United, but I'll still love every minute of that. So 3-1 Wolves.
Paul, I have no idea where you're going to go with this.
No, I'm generally tempted not to back a win, just so that the streak continues, because I've got a feeling if I do say a win, then that'll have the opposite effect. But
I've already done it, Paul.
I'm going with what Alex is putting down, in that it'd be good to have a season where we could say, well, that was the season where we got the double over Man United. So I'm going with that. I want a comical Mark Goldbridge meltdown, like when he's just talking and then goes, "Oh fucking hell!" So some calamitous mistake that lets us in for a really early goal, and I'm going to say a comfortable 2-0 away win.
Nice clean sheet. I'm kind of with Danny here. I mean, guys, they hadn't won 4 games in a row in the Premier League since 1972. We were all but a mere twinkle in our father's eye. As much as it looks like on paper we should be able to, it's still a road game. It's still at United. So I do think we're good enough to get a point out of there, and it's bad enough. So I'm gonna say a draw. Now keep in mind too, I'm gonna be in Molineux the next week, so maybe I'm doing this to make sure the streak doesn't end while I'm there, so you fuckers aren't blaming me and my couch yet. So 1-1 draw.
No Stupid Questions is brought to you by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. Whether you're toasting some Vino de Vitor or winding down after a day of work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of wine country with each sip. Now at esfuerzowines.com, you can use the promo code VITOR, that's VITOR, at checkout to receive a 30% discount off your order. And don't forget to try the special edition 1-pack wines to show your passion and support for Wolves with each glass. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their product responsibly and in moderation.
No Stupid Questions, our favorite part of the show, brought to you by Esfuerzo Wines. Lots of things to celebrate in the world of Wolverhampton Wanderers this past month or two. So many reasons to be toasting Vino to Vitor. VITOR at checkout. You can see it on the bottom if you're watching along on YouTube. Esfuerzowines.com. Go ahead and take advantage of that. So it's the point of the show where you, the listener, get to ask us anything related to Wolves. You could do so on X at WLWpod. You could email us. hello@wholelottofwolves.com is the show's email address. Let's start it off with friend of the show and frequent guest Adam from the Crying Wolves podcast. He asked us on X, is Jeff Shee just John Travolta's character in Battlefield Earth? This is definitely mostly directed at Josh because I've got no idea what it means.
It is directed at me because I gave this question to him for his podcast, and I think he said, yeah, this is the most Josh Buckley hot take ever. So the answer is yes, and here's why. I'll just real quick. John Travolta's character was an alien in Battlefield Earth. He was sent to Earth to be like the security guy because he had pissed off politicians on his home planet. So it was a punishment. When he realized it was a punishment, he was trying to embezzle like gold. He had humans learning to get gold so he could buy his way back. So this is Jeff C. He doesn't want to be in Wolverhampton. Only other Asians I know there are the visitors, from Korea. He doesn't want to be there, and so now he's trying to trim the table with little bits and pieces so he can buy his way back to Fosun because he desperately wants to get back to China. He's tired of the cold. Feel pretty confident.
I accept it.
Yeah, I'll take it. Also, like, good riddance. Go back. We want you back too.
I just can't see that how could he probably does not have a single friend that's native from his country, like true friend. So like, where does he go? Who does he hang out with? Like, I feel bad for the guy, but I don't. Like,
Yeah. Let's go to Todd DeWitt's question. He was on our guest last week, of course, of Minnesota Wolves. He emailed us hello@wholelotofwolves.com. If Vitor coined first the points, then the pints, what would have been the catchphrases of some of our other previous managers? Oh, man. Anyone got a good one for Gary O'Neill?
I've spent a long time trying to figure out how I can rhyme all the various tea brands that I know with some denigrating comment. I don't know. First the tips and then the yips or something. I don't know.
Bruno Lage.
Let's hear it.
He goes a number 9 and we'd be fine. A number 9.
that's exactly what I was gonna say. Paul, bravo.
There's got to be a Nuno Solutions one in there somewhere as well.
Greg, you're the musical comedian.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like this is up your alley.
I get, first the ablutions, then the solutions. You get the game out the way. The P, then the T. That was the Gary O'Neill, maybe.
Yep.
But yeah, I'll let if we've got a bit of time, I'll try and think of a few more before the end. Lopetegui wasn't. Did Lopetegui have any sort of tropes or things?
Oh, I kind of forgot about that. He had the pizza parties.
He had turtleneck in there somewhere.
Oh,
the pizza. Duh, the pizza.
Yeah, he would always be doing the pizza after the wins, which is kind of funny. Drew from Pittsburgh chimes in with first we score, then immediately concede, which is pretty funny because that's exactly what we did under Gary O'Neill.
It's funny those goals. Look, we talked about the Spurs goals earlier and like what it was like. It feels like you've been scored against twice in one goal when that happens, like from a deflating perspective, and like just to either balls it up at the back or then to score, gain the advantage, and then give it back within 3 minutes. It is serially demoralizing as a team, as we know, and that's why Spurs this is why these two games are going to be so interesting. Sorry to
you're exactly in the same position as you were, and if you could go back and take back the goal that you scored and wipe away the goal that they scored, you'd do it in a heartbeat. I'd rather just lose by the 2 goals or whatever. Like getting this constant we score then they immediately score is way worse than just losing 1-0 or 2-0.
It's the hope that kills you, isn't it?
Yep. Indeed. All right. Let's go to Bailey OJ on X. How many points can we claim from the remaining 18 realistically? I mean we may lose. How could
would you like to hear the remaining schedule?
Yeah.
All right, so the remaining schedule, of course, is Manchester United away, Leicester at home, City away, Brighton at home, Crystal Palace away, Brentford at home.
Yeah.
I say 8 or 9. I think we lose either Brighton or Brentford because that's kind of Wolvesy to lose a home match against one of those mid-table teams that we should win. I don't think we'll beat Man City. It's still at the Etihad. they've been struggling. I mean, the only for sure win is Leicester, right?
I don't know. It's that horrible time of the season where players who know they're not going to be in the Premier League next season start playing well.
Right.
I mean, Ipswich were 2 up against Chelsea the other day. These teams at the bottom, they don't have their flip flops on when you don't know where your next team is. You're at that game, Josh. That could be a harder game than some of the other ones that we've got. Ironically, it shouldn't be, but you know what it's like when you go in against these teams and
I'm petrified. I really am.
That's that pessimistic realism again.
Yeah,
You'll be there going, Greg warned me about this as Vardy
Well,
bangs
just because
in
I know everybody's going to blame it will be 100% directed. They won't even. You think Cunha has been getting it?
Well, I mean, and from
yeah.
Wolves' perspective, if we feel like we're secure and that's the first game where mathematically we might be potentially, then again the flip flops come on. The eye goes on the beach, and then it's to re-rally them for the last few games, and they could put in a better performance after that. So I don't know. I'd go with about like eight points from that 18. I think.
Yeah, that's about right. I was going to say like optimistically 9 or 10, but realistically like 7 or 8.
I think there's a few draws in there.
Yeah.
Just given the
especially when, like you
year.
said, as you get to the end of the season, you're playing your Brentfords and your Brightons, and like they might be trying to get 1 or 2 places up or down, but it's just like it's not really like it's not going to be much of anything to either team, and those can go either way and often end in a draw. I will say that I feel more optimistic going into these games against United and Leicester because like their defense is terrible. And like, whereas in the past, like we've struggled to score regardless of what the defense is like. And so it's just like, you're going up against these teams that they can't keep goals out. And that always gives you a decent chance. Whereas like in the past, when we can't score, even if we're playing against a team that their defense is terrible, we just let one in and it's over. So I do feel like quietly confident about some of those, but some of these who have like competent deep defenses like Crystal Palace or whatever, I mean, like, that's going to be a serious test, especially if, like Greg says, we're all on the beach.
I mean, last season we really petered out. We had injuries, and I don't think that it will be lost on Pereira how important a decent end to the season is, both for morale around the club and then even on signings. If you've got that momentum towards the end, you finish way above where you thought you would. The ability to bring players in early doors in particular and just get that squad together, I think it's important. So I'm hoping that we don't tail off like we have done in previous seasons, because we then start at the beginning of the next season the same way. So that's going to be an important thing for them to get ahead of, I think.
Yep. All right, let's go to Stu's question on X. If an American sports coach could ever replicate points then pints, Josh?
I don't see it. I've been trying to think it. Number one of the things I looked up here, I figured Vitor Pereira was like a total bachelor, but he's actually married with kids. So I thought that was interesting. No, I don't. I don't feel like there's that kind of community deal where a coach would just stroll up into a pub, going first the points, then the pints. And that's what makes English soccer so special and unique compared to anything in the U.S. I don't think we'd experience anything like that.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to envision. I don't even know like what sport I would go to first to like think, maybe college football. No, like, I mean, no, I don't think he'd be going.
College football, maybe.
Yeah.
And that's just because the coaches have to do so much recruiting. Like, and even that's very few. Like Lane Kiffin, obviously, would be. And we saw what Urban Meyer liked to do with college.
Yeah,
that's
not
a little different then too. Right?
Yeah, it's not quite the same tone. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Ted Lasso before. Because I haven't even like stopped to think about the parallels to that. Like we're just living a real life Portuguese Ted Lasso. Like how fun is that? We deserve it after everything we've sat through. What were you going to say, Danny?
Well, another thing to consider is just the relative size of Wolverhampton, which I've looked up a handful of times because I'm always curious about these things. But it's like the population is half the size of Baltimore, and Baltimore is like not a particularly big city. In fact, I'd say in terms of the like like major cities that people know of the US. It's one of the smallest. And so it's like, it gives it a completely different thing. Like, you know, the head coach of like, I don't know, like the Lakers or something, like goes out, he's in LA, you know, like it's just totally different to Vitor Pereira going down to the city center and having a Stella Artois. Like, as you know, it's just, it's not comparable, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I was trying to think, like, even, I mean, like the Packers, right? Like the 80% of the population fits in Lambeau Field and probably is in Lambeau Field most of the
That's probably as close as you could get.
That might be as close as you get, but like those guys, like they're usually just like spotted at the grocery store or something. They're not like truly out rallying up fans, drinking at bars. It's just like too high profile.
Maybe they should.
Maybe they really should. Yeah. I agree. All right. Let's go to another question from Drew. Drew Freakin on X. Different thoughts on Tommy Doyle after he was technically removed from the squad. Paul, TFD, what's going on?
Yeah, I gave this some thought when it first came in, and I was thinking, well, he'll be all right, you know, based on having to have the homegrown quota and everything. But then I started to peel it back a little. I was like, well, even Boubacar Traore got the nod over Tommy Doyle for that place on the bench. And then I went even further back, and it was, well, he's got the option as well to play Bellegarde in his natural position as well, in that centre mid spot, if needs arise, like he did against Villa and it excelled. So you add those factors together, then you looking at those like distinct squad players that could be an option for a team like Leeds or Sheffield United again if they come up. They're the type of player that you want to be looking at in terms of Premier League experience, but potentially available. So I think he's on a little shakier ground than I originally thought he was.
Crazy, because I thought he was one of the building blocks.
Was the talk of reformatting him, like turning him off and then on again and turn him into a different style of player under Pereira? Was that something I'd heard?
Yeah, for me. Yeah, I do think the whole number 10 thing, but I thought what was interesting is with when he was asked about it, about Geddes and Doyle, he said, well, got to see people competing in.
All right. Yes.
So makes it feel like Doyle was kind of lacking in training. I don't know.
I mean, it's hard not to read into that, because like if Mateus Mane is on the bench, who's a kid, and I know that, you know, Pereira is going to have some excuse about the profiles that he wants in terms of who to replace if certain things happen or whatever, but realistically, I mean, Tommy Doyle should be on the bench instead of that kid, presumably, without another reason. It's funny because it was just last week we were talking about, you know, turning him into a bit of a number 10. And so you imagine him sort of playing that Sarabia role, just like Sarabia was doing in the Spurs game. So maybe time for a rethink. I still think that it's an open question because we haven't really seen it. And he hasn't given any hint that, like, you know, it's completely out of the question that Tommy Doyle is a part of the team next year. But certainly I can't sit here and say that I think the chances are going down, you know?
Yeah. Let's go to Greg on this one. King Wolf 84 asks, it's International Goalkeepers Day. So who is your favorite goalkeeper?
Ooh, my favorite goalkeeper, Crystal Palace's Gabor Kirai. Remember him wearing the tracksuit bottoms? That was he stands out just out of nowhere. I remember going to Budapest, and me and my mate, that fellow who is a big Crystal Palace fan, we were trying to find some Gabor Kirai tracksuit bottoms that we could wear while we were in Budapest. Seemed like a good thing to do drunk in my 20s. From a Wolves perspective, obviously, when I was growing up, Mike Stowell was the name. You know, on everyone's lips, and I have to say, I like Patricio. I like Sarr. You know, I think we talked a little bit earlier in the season about the impact of a weak defense. You know, we had a weak defense, and Sarr was making those, you know, ricks, and every game there seemed to be like a mistake or distribution error, and then all of a sudden, you know, you threw the stats up just, and the ability to defend, suddenly though they go away. I mean, they've not been completely exonerated, but I think Sarr's done a good job. I don't know why we spent 10 million on John Starr like as a backup for that. I think again this is a little bit of that. This is a little bit of that saber rattling that sometimes you do as a manager to try and shake an area of the team up. It might be exactly why they put Tommy Doyle to one side this week, because he's not progressing as well in the training that they're doing to turn him into a number 10. But I think does it have to be Wolves specific in terms of favorite keepers, or no?
I didn't think so.
Yeah, and then maybe beyond that, someone like Peter Schmeichel, just because I can imagine how happy Manchester United would be if they had him now rather than the options they've got. And I think he was, again, growing up as a kid, he was always an ever present, because a lot of the football I watched on TV were those kind of midweek Champions League games on ITV, and he was always like the big presence there.
Yeah,
Howard's mine. Always going to be at the top of the list as a fan.
Yeah, Paul, who's your favorite?
But purely based on Wolves, that elusive first promotion back to the Premier League with a save in the player final is Matt Murray. And if his legs weren't made out of paper, he'd have gone on to play for England, I'm sure.
Danny?
I mean, my first memory of a sort of wild goalkeeper, I don't know who's going to get this one, but is Jorge Campos, Mexican goalkeeper, early MLS, and a bunch of other places too. 5'6", not even in those days of MLS. Very strange height for a goalkeeper.
That's even shorter than Alex Patak. Is that Chris Fisher size?
And he wore some very strange, like, windbreaker style, like, shirts and shorts. It's hard to describe, but in the 90s there was like a brief trend of like very baggy goalkeeper uniforms, I guess, especially out here. I'm going to send it in the group chat, and we'll see if you guys get it before we finish this question. But Jorge Campos, a very strange man in a strange time.
I can't even believe it. It must just look so funny to see a 5'6" keeper standing in the frame of the goal. What?
Looks like a starter jacket poncho for sure.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. Oh, man. All right, Josh, you had a question, a no stupid question, because you need some advice.
Yeah, Paul. So I'm packing for my trip. Is there something that I need to really be remembering to pack going to England that I wouldn't necessarily pack if I was flying?
The obvious one is like the adapter for the electrical.
I got the adapter.
That's okay. Ranch is a little harder to come by, so you won't be able to ask for ranch in the restaurant so much.
Bring some of those instant ranch packets. That's just the powder.
Greg, is there anything I'm missing, or?
I mean, if you're going in summer, I'd take the umbrella and then a spare umbrella as well. I think just having a backup always helps. That's stereotypical, but honestly, it's really valid. And then maybe something to bring some of the stuff back that you can't get here. So,
there will be
gaffer cakes.
I'm buying another bag when we get out there. We did determine that.
Yeah,
my wife and I talked about bringing Uncrustables, but I don't think Customs would take that much. Plus, I don't think they'd necessarily make the trip good. So you lucked out, Stu.
And hobnobs as well. It just I think you can get it on Amazon, but like it's not the same as going into a Sainsbury's and buying 100 packets of hobnobs like I've done in the past before the tariffs kick in, maybe as well.
Yeah,
yeah, seriously. All right, let's wrap on Steve Young's question, who asks on X, the odds of the cowboy hat making its way back to Texas. We've talked about this a lot. Paul said no way, but if we're setting the odds, so like we got to put a line. Oh wow, it comes in like a case. Do they all come?
You got a
A
case.
lot of cowboy hats.
Oh
Hey,
my god!
put
For
it
those
in.
not watching on YouTube, he's got like a hat holster thing, which is pretty hilarious. For those listeners that he's now holding up and showing us. All right, so you got to just get it back in that somehow. All right, you're usually the bookmaker. That's the thing, Josh. But if we're setting the odds, what are we saying? Like I'm saying, hat returning to the States by the U.S. odds making system, like plus 350.
Jesus, no. So I put out a poll last week. Got 89 votes. I said, think about wearing the cap, but cowboy hat. Should I? 51.7% said yes, it will be safe. 37.1% said yes, but it'll be stolen. And 11.2% said no, it will be stolen. So the majority of people, though, do think it'll be safe. And here's the secret weapon I have, Alex, which helps the odds. I have a Korean wife, and Koreans get very angry.
Okay.
She said, I'll make sure that's not stolen. Okay, so better watch out. You're gonna have to deal with an angry Korean if
You're gonna start an international incident while you're over there. I'm certain of it.
Yeah, seriously. What are the odds on you coming back? Now I'm starting to wonder that. Paul was saying no, but it's interesting, Paul, because I feel like for a while we were thinking that the Molineux atmosphere could be toxic and people would channel their anger at Josh. Now I'm thinking it's more likely it'll get lost in a crazy celebration or something, the way things are going for Wolves right now.
It could be a crazy celebration where it gets flung down a bunch of rows, taken off and like spun. Especially if you are in the North Bank in a standing section, then
I am in the north. I am in NL5 or NL5.
can you just imagine it, watch it on TV? It's like when those paper airplanes get thrown, all of a sudden we see this cowboy hat come flinging across and like just misses Jose Sarr and lands on the penalty spot.
So best case scenario is that happens, and then like after one of the players scores, Larsen runs over and celebrates by putting it on, although God forbid what would happen to him afterwards. Maybe slightly worst case scenario is Leicester score and Jamie Vardy puts it on.
Oh
Oh
man.
my God, I'll never be allowed back. I'll have to run out of the stadium and just hop on the train immediately.
I think potentially though, where you are in the ground, I wouldn't be surprised if the camera panned to you and they're like, who is that wearing a cowboy?
Yeah, I already told people. I said I've got a pretty good feeling. Like I'm gonna be wearing a white cowboy hat, and my wife's Korean. Like they're gonna be like,
Yeah, what is going on here? No, that's my selfish reason for wanting you to bring it is just that. Like, I know that there's a high likelihood that they're gonna find you at the camera.
Yeah. Now Stu did say he retweeted my poll and said, "Come on, people, the hat will be safe." So I have a good feeling Stu's going to help. Danny does not think so. Danny,
We'll see. I don't know.
I mean, it's what's happening at the match, and you're not sitting with Stu. So
yeah, that's true.
It's at that point, it's out of his hands. Thanks to everyone for writing in your no stupid questions, and thanks to our friends at Esfuerzo Wines for sponsoring No Stupid Questions. EsfuerzoWines.com. Promo code Vitor at checkout. Get 30% off of your wine order.
All right, Greg, thanks for coming on. Good debut today.
Thanks very much. Yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed watching the Tottenham game with a notepad. For the, didn't figure out who the mole was, but hopefully they'll be found. And they haven't got a transfer to the Molineux for next season, so that'll be good.
So, how can people get a hold of you and watch your comedy?
Yeah, well, I'm on the socials at Greg Ellis Comedy. That's my URL. I got a show coming up 15th of May. That's a musical stand-up on a show called Finally Some Bad News, which is a topical one here. They have a podcast as well, which I'm on occasionally doing the musical direction and some stand-up there. So that's the best place to find me.
And that brings this week's show to an end. Thanks to Alex producing, Danny on the socials, you, the wonderful streamer or the wonderful podcast listener, because without your involvement, there wouldn't be a show. If you could give us a solid and place a 5-star review across your podcast platform that you listen to, that would be fantastic. Or head over to YouTube if you've not done so already. Give us a subscribe, hit all the likes you can. All of that goes a tremendous way to helping boost our exposure and bring other fans here in the States into the whole Lot of Wolves pack. So we're going to be back this time next week, breaking down everything that happens at Old Trafford on Sunday and then previewing that Josh Buckley Leicester City game. So as you head into the week, everybody, you know, we deserve it. So when you speak to people, just tell them, up the mighty Wolves. Nice one, Greg. That was really